I already had a few people ask me about what kind of oil to use when you have a flat tappet cam. And here's a few of the oils from my local parts stores that are heavy in zinc. This Valvoline Vr1, the 2050. If you read the back of the label, I'll have to bruise this in, but it says it's rich with zinc for older cars. It's somewhere on there. I did see it. And this is one of the zinc-rich oils there, the Valvoline. Comp oil is good. If you got a new motor, this is a good way to go. It's really heavy with the zinc. They add a lot of it in there. And this is what you need when you break a flat tappet cam in. Don't try to put regular oil in and put the additive in. It just doesn't seem to work as well. You always have to incorporate the cam break-in lube, but you always want to incorporate a decent oil with a high level of zinc. I am not a synthetic oil man because synthetic oil, although it has some good properties, with an air-cooled motor, one of the biggest problems with it is synthetic oil is not made to trap heat. One of the properties of synthetic oil is it has the ability not to get hot. So if you put this in your Volkswagen, what you'll see is your engine oil temperature will go down and your cylinder head temperature will go through the roof, because the oil flowing over the aluminum parts in the motor no longer have the ability to pull the heat out of the part. So it will decrease the oil temperature, but it will make all your other parts run hotter. I don't care for synthetic in an air-cooled motor. There's people that are going to argue this with me, and it's not a very good argument when you think about how this oil works and how an air-cooled motor works. We use the oil to cool the engine. And if the oil can't pull the heat from the part and it won't soak heat into the oil, it can't take the heat to the oil cooler. And you end up with colder oil and hotter cylinder heads. This is another one of my favorites, is the Aero Shell. I showed you guys this the other day. This is a high in zinc. This is a straight 50 weight. Like I said, this would be probably way too heavy for a lot of you guys in the colder climates. It gets in the 100 degrees here though, and that oil's fine for here. This is a 1040. Again, I don't recommend the synthetic, but it is rich in zinc. AMSOIL does have a couple different hot rod oils, and you know, if you have an American car and you got water to cool the engine, this is probably a good choice. But being that we don't have a radiator on a Volkswagen and we depend on the oil to pull the heat off the parts and take it to the cooler, this might not be your best choice, or any synthetic for that fact, just for the simple reason that synthetic oil is designed where it doesn't carry heat, and we need it to carry the heat to the cooler with an air-cooled engine. The comp oil is probably your best bet if you're breaking something in. This oil is pretty much designed for flat tappet cams. You know, they manufacture camshafts, and this oil is available at Summit or most speed shops. A lot of speed shops will either carry the comp or the Joe Gibbs, and the Joe Gibbs is good also. I put that in the Nova, and this is more of the probably the oil that you would find at your normal parts store. And if you were going to go with something like the Valvoline, you know, you might want to add the extra protection in with the Lucas on top of this, just to make sure you have extra protection. A lot of times if you put that Lucas in the motor, it'll turn all the engine parts yellow. And I don't know if you guys experienced that, but that's the whatever's in the additive. It stains the engine parts, which is either a good thing or a bad thing. It lets you know that the oil is reaching the parts for sure. But those are 4 oils that I like, and or I should say 3 oils that I like. I in no way, no shape or form will I ever endorse synthetic oil, but that's what I use. And people give me the argument a lot of times about oil, and when I worked on the funny car team, we never used synthetic oil, and we had the ability to buy anything that we wanted. The budget was unlimited, and we always used you know, traditional type petroleum type based oil. And we would have the oil company there. We had Valvoline was our oil sponsor, and they would come to the races and they would look at the engine bearings between rounds, and they would tailor the oil to the conditions that we were racing in. They can add different wear items and stuff to the oil, and a lot of that stuff that they put in the oil is very expensive, so it never makes its way to the consumer. But in the racing world, you get to have a sort of a special relationship with the oil companies, you know, especially if they sponsor your car. You get to work with them. They look at the bearing, they put more load additive in, they have all different kinds of pressure additives they can put in oil, but all that stuff is very expensive, and comp is probably your best, you know, choice if you want to be 100% sure that you're going to get the proper amount of zinc and that you'll have a, you know, successful break-in. And break-in oil is pretty important on a new motor. You know, it has a large amount of zinc, and you know, it protects the parts, helps break the cam in, and you know, it really is a benefit to buy the proper oil. I don't think you cheat anybody but yourself when you skimp on the oil. You know, an engine builder can only do so much, and then once he hands the motor over to the consumer, you know, it's up to you to take the proper steps to take care of it. And we used to be able to buy just regular oil, and those days are gone. You know, it's just the world that we live in now. So be sure that you get oil that is zinc rich, and it should say for flat tappet cams on the back of the bottle. A lot of people aren't aware that the government pulled the zinc out of the oil, claiming that it clogged the catalytic converters up. And a lot of people think that they pulled the zinc out of the oil to get some of the older cars off the road. They didn't tell anybody when they did it. It was just sort of we pulled it out, and that's why your stuff's blowing up. And you know, if you build flat tappet cam motors, we've had to adjust and you know, sort of get crazy on the oil that we put in these to assure that the cam won't wipe. And you can buy every bit of this oil, and you can take every precaution, and that's no guarantee that the cam's not going to wipe out. There is no guarantee. It's just something that happens in the Volkswagen world because of the quality of parts we deal with and the construction of the parts. You know, we have no control over the material they use, and a lot of times they'll change material in the middle of a run to cheapen a process up, and we're the ones that deal with it, you know. So the cam situation seems to be getting a little bit better. I don't know if it's because people are becoming aware of the oil issues, or if it's because, you know, the manufacturers are putting a little more Rockwell hardness on the camshafts and the lifters. So other than that, we got the cylinder head pulled apart, and I'll show you a few things on this we're going to take care of. You can see the there's a little bit of a ledge right here under the seat. We're going to touch that up. These heads seem to have that. Knolls were like this, and I had to go in and clean them up. You can see the material hanging out of the seat there a little bit. So we'll blend those seats in, and as I tell you guys, here's the valves. They're not lapped in. Whoops, there we go. You can see there's no lapping marks. So we'll get some valve lapping compound. We'll get these lapped in, see where our seat's at. We're going to CC the heads after we get everything lapped in. We're going to grind our keepers and make sure they're not touching. And what I mean by that is when you put the keepers on the valve here, you don't want them to touch each other, and if they do, you need to grind them so you have some clearance between the keepers. A lot of times if you don't grind the keepers and they touch together, these don't touch together, these are fine. But a lot of times you'll see the keepers make contact and there's no space between them. And when you have that situation, the keepers will wear the tip of the valve out, and it'll be impossible to get the valve out of the head. And when you go to pull it apart, it pulls all the metal up here. So these have already been ground. These are hardened keepers. The hardware looks pretty decent on these. We're going to go in. If you buy a set of these heads and you pull the valve out, obviously the port work is pretty decent. It's all CNC machined. This head is 100% CNC'd, but the CNC machine stops on certain places, and if you put your hand in here, you will feel, you know, some sharp edges under the seats, and then in the turn it's sort of rough, and the turn's rough on the exhaust also. So if you take these apart and blend your seats and do your turns, just smooth the radius out. They will pick up a little bit of flow. They will flow fine right out of the box, but I never recommend putting a head on right out of the box. You can see these valves were installed in the head. There's no lubricant. You know, you want to Make sure that you have some lubricant on the valve stems. Make sure that all the valve stems are, you know, clearance properly. I have a couple that are tight here. I got one guide that'll have to do clearance for the valve, and it's just taking the steps to make sure everything was done, crossing the I's and dotting the T's, or is it the other way around? But never trust anybody when you buy a part, you know. I don't care what the reputation is. You almost always have to take your stuff apart and look at it and make sure it's the way you want. We've talked before about the importance of lapping the valve into the seat. They cut this with probably a 30 or a new way cutter type deal. It puts all three surfaces on the seat at one time, and they don't come back and lap the seat in. And what happens is it has to form that seal between the valve and the seat. After it operates for a little bit, it will slap the seat and seal off. But when we're breaking camshafts in and have to have the motor run good when we fire it up, the more stuff like this that you do, the better your motor will run when you initially fire it up, and it'll give you the ability to break your cam in without overheating the motor and stuff like that. It's just better to take care of this stuff. It takes 5 or 10 minutes to take the head apart, and you might have a half hour in these to you know, dust up the corners, lap the valves in, put some oil on the guides and make sure everything's good, and then you're 100% and you know that you're good. So that's where we're at with this. I'll come out here and work on this in a little bit. I want to throw up this oil video for you guys, and I had a subscriber who wanted to know about the oil, and I told him I'd make a video. So I picked some of that up today. So I gave you some choices. I don't ever want to just tell you one thing, you know, as long as the oil has zinc in it. You know, different people prefer different viscosity of oils, and depending on your climate, obviously the weight of the oil is going to, you know, be tailored to your climate. But the one thing to remember always is to get the zinc rich oil, and you should have better luck with your flat tappet cams. Hope the video helped. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the videos, and thanks for the interaction. I do appreciate the support.